Hello again, everyone. It's J Rock, and now that we've gotten through all the introductions and everything, I thought now would be a good time for us to get into the content and go through some of the topics that I've got planned. The first topic I want to cover, because it's probably one of the largest, is resumes, because there's so much you can talk about when it comes to resumes. You've got format, you've got content, you've got audience, all of those things. So I want to kind of tackle that first and break that up into a couple of different videos. So this one in particular is going to start off kind of very basic. How long is your resume? And I know some of you are probably thinking like, I wonder how long it is. The last time I sent out, I think it was like 2 or 3. So we want to kind of look at that and see how long is your resume, and does it really need to even be that long? Because for those of you who don't know, employers spend 30 seconds or less scanning your resume. Think about that. So if I'm only taking 30 seconds, if you've got 2 and 3 pages, I'm not even going to get to the rest of that. So this video is possibly going to give you some tips and tricks to hopefully get you to make your resume more concise and hopefully get it to being one page. That's my goal for all resumes, is to get them to one page if possible. And I know with the one page rule, I've got a lot of veterans out there who are, who are looking at me saying, Jay, I've got 20 years of experience, I've got 30 years of experience, I've worked in 4 or 5 different industries, everything can't fit on one page, which is fine because you've got a lot of experience that you can speak to, so you probably need multiple pages. But this especially is for students who are just recent grads, or in their first job, or even a couple of years out, 5 or 10 years. You may not really need to have 2 and 3 pages of resume, and we're going to highlight some items that can possibly get you to make things more concise. So the first thing I want to talk about is making use of the space on the page. Now, a lot of times when I get resumes to review, I see that there's a lot of white space either on the left hand or the right hand side, and you could possibly be making so much more use of that and making your resume shorter. And people say, well, I want to make sure I have the right margins, 1.25 or 1-inch margins all the way around. And while that's good printing etiquette and English etiquette, an employer would more appreciate you having smaller margins than you having 1-inch margins and then they've got 2 and 3 pages that you want them to read. So think about toying with your margins a little bit. If you currently have it at 1-inch margins, you've got 2 pages, think about maybe dropping it down to 0.9 or 0.8 or 0.7 and see how much more you can fit, making it easier for the employer to read, and they can pick it up easy, scan it, and know whether or not you have the skills. The second point that I want to talk through is relevant experience. Now, many times you get people, if you're applying for a job, they've kind of listed everything, they've thrown in everything, but the kitchen sink on the resume. And we want to get to the place where we can make our resumes more targeted. So if you're applying for a finance job and you have some finance experience, obviously you want to highlight that. But if you worked at Gap as a sales associate, 10 years ago, that's not as relevant. While it is job experience, an employer who's looking for a financial analyst, or if they're looking for a marketer, they may not want to know that you worked at Gap in the stockroom, or you manned grandma's lemonade stand one summer. All of that's not relevant. So you want to make sure that you're targeting your resume to the audience and to the job that you're applying for. Now, I understand that some of you are saying, well, I'm not going to rewrite my resume all the time. That I understand, but you want to make sure that if you're going to have a standard resume, you're making sure that the most relevant experience you have and the most recent experience you have is what's highlighted front and center on the resume. Now, the next point I want to talk through, so now that we know that we can toy with the margins, and we're going to make sure our resume is targeted, we also want to think about less is more. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what do you mean by less is more? I'm going to tell you. When I say less is more is when you really read through your job descriptions, or when you're talking about your job responsibilities, how many bullet points do you have there? And if you realize that, okay, I've got 10 bullet points and 5 of them are pretty much saying the same thing, you could probably condense them into, fewer bullet points, or eliminate some of them so you don't sound redundant. And that also ties in with the relevant job experience. If you've got multiple jobs and they're saying the same thing and some of those aren't even relevant anymore, let those fall off. And when you're crafting your actual job descriptions and you're going bullet point by bullet point saying what you did, you want to make sure that you're not using 20 words when 10 will do. We want to make sure that if you worked on a project or you led a project that resulted in saving the company X million of dollars, or you were able to bring in this much revenue, or you train this many people, make sure that you say that right at the beginning of the statement. That way I can, if I'm scanning, I can see that Joe Smo manned this project and they saved $20 million. That should be a bullet point. It shouldn't be that, well, we got this team together and we did X, Y, and Z, and at the end we were able to save $20 million. At that point, you've already lost the employer, because again, they're taking 30 seconds. That's all they're taking. And so those are kind of the 3 points. I wanted to make sure that this was a very quick and easy video. So just to recap, first, make sure you're making use of the space on the page. Toy with the margins a little bit. Also, point number 2, relevant experience. You don't have to throw in everything. Make sure that you're targeting your resume to the audience and to the job that you're applying for. And finally, less is more. Don't use 20 words, 10 will do. So hopefully this helps, and if you have questions or you have other concerns about your resume length and you're wondering what can you do, feel free to leave me a comment, or you can follow me on Twitter and contact me on Twitter at FocusJ, FocusJ, FocusEdJ, and talk to you soon.